The story begins is between two classes of people. The poor people, that's the common people, and the aristocrats, the monarchies of the world that are all powerful. And it has a revolt that happens, due to which the monarchies fall. And that's exactly where the story begins as a summary in the painting of Frederic Sorollot. Frederic Sorollot was a French artist, and he made a painting known as the dream of the worldwide democratic and social republics. It was made in the year 1848. So Frederic Sorollot got this dream of nation states, of democratic republics. Now, what are these democratic republics? It means where a person can vote by themselves. It means a place where you have freedom, freedom of speech, political freedom, economic freedom, etc. Now let's go and understand what this painting says. This is an introductory painting in which they explain the idea of nationalism. So what can we see in this painting? First, we can see there is something at the bottom here. That is the shattered remains or absolutist institutions. What this means is the shattered remains of monarchy. What does absolutist mean? It means a rule or a ruler who is all pervasive, who other people have no say. There is no dissent allowed in this place. It's absolute. What the ruler says is final. That's what absolutist means. So with this uprising of people that we see, that the absolutist remains or the monarchies are destroyed completely, and they are on the floor and they lie on the ground. The second thing that we see is a long march of people. And when we see closely, they are the people of Europe and America marching in a long train. They are men and women of all ages and classes marching towards a statue of liberty. This is the utopian vision of Frederic Sorollot. What does utopian mean? Utopian meant something or an idea which can never be achieved. It is only about fantasy. And the year when this painting was made, it was near impossibility that the monarchs of this world could fall and the government of the people would come about. It was only in dreams and people did not believe in it. But they did fight for it, and later it did come about. But at this point of time, it was a dream, which was looked like was unachievable. And that is what utopian means. So people in a distinct group of nations. That is, example, if people spoke French or they had a common culture of the region of France, they were grouped as the people of France. If they spoke German and they had common culture and collective identity, they were grouped as the people of Germany. They each carried their own flags and had their own national costume. You could identify them by seeing the clothes that they wore and the flag that they carried. So this is the basis of a nation. Collective identity. People wearing the same clothes, having the same culture, having the same language, having a collective identity is what made a nation. And what Frederic Sorollot saw was people grouped or forming nations as opposed to rulers. They grouped themselves, people of common identity grouped together and made a nation. They had their own flag and identity. And they marched against the monarchs of the world. United States of America and Switzerland were already nation states by the year 1848. And we see that they have already passed the Statue of Liberty. They already have freedom and they've already overthrown their monarchs. You can see the United States and Switzerland passed the Statue of Liberty because they were already nation states by 1848. You can see that France, in its tricolor, that's here, has already just come to the Statue of Liberty. In 1848, the monarchies of France were just crumbling. There were revolts, and they were just approaching freedom from their monarchs or their kings who oppressed the common people so much. France has a tricolor, red, white, blue. Following them are the nation states of Germany. Germany is seen in the black, red, and yellow flag. In 1848, Germany was not a nation state by now. But it is so fantastic to see that Frederick Sorie could see that Germany could and would become a nation state. There were protests already in Germany by 1848 to form a nation state. Then came the other states, Austria, the Kingdom of the Two Sicilies, that's in South Italy, Lombardy, that is in the north of Italy, Poland, and England. All these countries come together, they group of themselves, and they march against the monarchs. This is the whole of Europe rising against monarchy or absolute oppression. Now, where are these people going? They are going towards liberty. And the Statue of Liberty represents that, exactly that. It represents liberty. People are paying respect that thank you that I have got the liberty to speak. Thank you, I have the liberty to talk. I have the liberty to think and express my opinion. Today, in democratic India and all around the world where democracies are, it feels like a birthright that I can say what I want, I can think what I want, and I can wear what I want. But in the olden days, this was not the case. Dissent was not accepted by the monarchs. You say a word against the monarch, and the monarch would put you in jail or deliver a punishment. We should be thankful for all the freedom fighters that we today have the right to speak and the right to think, or we have absolute freedom. So people are going towards the Statue of Liberty in the picture that is personified as a female figure. Liberty is an idea, but to see and to make it visual for the common public, it is in the painting, it is represented as a female figure. It carries a torch of enlightenment in one hand that gives enlightenment to the people that walk towards it. Enlightenment is openness of mind or knowledge. It moves from darkness to light. On the other hand, it has the Charter of Rights of Man. What this is a document that gives the right of liberty to men or women. At those times, man was the term used for persons. So it's the Charter of Rights of People, but here it is written as Charter of Rights of Man. At this point of time, the world was only Europe for Frederick Sorie, and he wanted to see Europe divided or into nation states which comprised of people with collective identity of similar thinking. He believed that there should be no monarchs and people should appoint a government by themselves and rule themselves. This is Frederick Sorie's dream. And he saw that Christ, that is the God of the Christians. Christianity is the dominant religion in Europe. So Christ and the saints of Christianity and the angels in heaven are looking upon the scene. They gaze upon the earth and they bless them, and they give them divine blessing. They symbolize the fraternity amongst nations in this world. That means they symbolize the brotherhood amongst people and the collective identity of people. So this was Frederick Sorev's dream. The destruction of monarchy. The people of Europe and America marching against them, destroying them. People forming in groups, and these groups coming to be nation states. They have their own individual identity. They all become free. They have liberty. They march towards the Statue of Liberty. And God, that's Christ in heaven, is blessing them, is giving them divine blessings. So this is the idea and the theme of all the chapters that we learn henceforth, or going ahead in this lesson. The people's uprising against the kings for liberty. They were oppressed for thousands and thousands of years, and finally they go and they have self-rule. What are the factors that come about that these people were so oppressed that they had to revolt? Why? What are the factors that came into play that they got so much courage to revolt? That is what we will learn in this chapter. We will go and see that each location and in each group of people, what happened, in each country, in each empire, what happened. And we'll understand that how did events happen that led to nation states. So let's begin. What happened is the emergence in the 19th century Europe was the emergence of nation states in Europe. This was political and social. There was a revolt. The end result was which? The emergence of nation states. The majority of the citizens, that is, developed a common identity and shared history or descent. They had common struggles through the actions of the leaders. And this is what a nation state is. It is similar to a modern state which existed earlier. What is the difference between a modern state and a nation state? In the previous time, like I said, there was a monarch, a king that ruled over people with different cultures, different identities. And many times there was decentralization of rule. There was a feudal system. For example, let's see the example of a ruler ruling over France, Germany, and Italy. The king or the capital was in Paris, France. So the king would go and say, okay, I give Germany to my cousin. I give Italy to my uncle to rule. So there was no central authority. The ruler in France made rules for France. The ruler of Germany, though under the same French rule, or the subsidiary ruler of Germany made rules for Germany. The subsidiary ruler of Italy made rules for Italy. There was no centralization of authority. There was no centralization of rule making. If you went to France, there was one rule that applied. Under the same empire, if you went to Germany, there was a different rule that applied. If you went to Italy, there was a different rule that applied. And this frustrated people. This was the empire system, that was the monarchs or the kings. Now they realized that this was not working because the people are frustrated. So they said that we should have a clearly defined territory in which there will be a centralized rule making or laws that will apply. So in this example, France, Germany, and Italy will have one rule or one law that will be led through Paris, that is the capital. So modern state had clearly defined territory. In this example, Germany, France, and Italy, and they had centralized power by a sovereign control. That is, the rules being made by one person, the capital. That's Paris. It's an example. It's an example. Now, what the nation state? Now, what the modern state did not have is, we should understand to understand what a nation state is. The people of Germany, the people of France, the people of Italy have nothing in common. They don't have the same costume, clothes, they don't have the same culture, they don't speak the same language at this point of time. They don't feel connected to each other. They feel like the different people are living in the same empire or the same administration or rule. This was the modern state. Diverse group of people living together that had nothing in common. When these people form groups, people of the same collective identity, people speaking French, people having the same French costume, form a group and say we want to form a country that only has France in it, not Germany or not Italy, because they're different people. That's when you have a nation state. So Germany will have its own country, ruler, independent and exclusive. It will not be under French rule. Why will they be under rule from a different people? France will have its own ruler. Italy will have its own ruler. They don't want to follow rules from France or Paris. And that is what a nation state is: collective identity, a common identity. People having the same culture, the same language, shared history or descent, and they're forged or they're known through struggles of the people or the leaders that they had. This is the difference between nation state and modern state. The major difference, remember, is the collective identity and shared history. These nation states came about in place of the multinational dynastic empires of Europe. Like I explained, kings ruling over large territories, France, Germany, Italy, diverse people under the same ruler, which they didn't feel connected to. They felt that they were living in this whole place only because of the ruler ruled over them, or it had defeated some army. The common allegiance of all these people, or the common loyalty, was only because of the rulers. The difference was that nation states were together because the people felt combined, or they felt a connection to each other. So what is a nation? Ernest Renan, an academic, in 1882 wrote an essay or a thesis that described what is a nation. So a nation is a social capital. It means that's a social being, it's a social idea that people who have a long past, who have common endeavors or common struggles, or heroic past, common sacrifice, devotion to each other, or the people together, the common intent to perform great deeds in the present and the future, and we will together, like we think India will do great things today and the future. We are all Indians. A nation is a plebiscite. A plebiscite is a direct vote. I say that I am India. We together will do great things as India. People have to say a common identity and say that they are part of the nation. Every day they will say, it's a large scale, large number of people will say that we form India. A nation state also guarantees liberty. Liberty basically means freedom, but it is much larger. It means freedom in all aspects, in the aspect of the mind, thinking, in the aspect of speech, in the aspect of person, in the aspect of expression, to voice dissent is what liberty means. So this is the theme of what's going to happen in all the countries that we study. And the new words that we learned here are absolutist. That means a government or system rule that has no restraint. It has all the power and has no dissent. It is usually Power is with the king. King can do whatever he wants. And the king has an army, it is militarized. On the basis of the army, the king is going and capturing people, torturing people, punishing people. Anyone who says anything against the king is tortured or is punished. Utopian. Utopian means a fantasy that cannot become reality. Basically means ideal, an idea that is unlikely to actually exist. A plebiscite is a direct vote of all the people of the area that say whether they want to form a nation state or not. So for each and every person will be asked, do you want to form a nation? If the answer is yes, then nation state will be formed. That is what a plebiscite means, a direct vote, everybody. Let's understand what questions come. Now we've learned what happened in Frederick Sorouil's dream. So let's understand that what questions can come from this. So in this whole lesson, I also have divided it into chapter wise or in brackets, and immediately after that, I have given questions. So it becomes easy for you to remember or relate. What kind of questions is the CBSE asking? I've studied the past year papers. I've studied in the NCERT books. This all becomes very easy rather than learning everything and then coming to see what the questions are and then recalling. It becomes easier this way to understand. So at the end, our goal is to learn, yes, but the learning has to show in the marks. You have to get 90 above. You have to get amazing marks. That's when it shows that you're amazing learning. And I always believe that if someone wants to get amazing marks, they should learn first do the past year's questions. Do it so well that you should know by heart. This is the past. Most of the questions you see are repetitive. They come again and again. You will notice that. We should know everything, but we should know by heart the past questions. We should know it by heart. And the NCERT questions. The question that can become in respect of Frederick Sorouil's dream was summarize the attributes of a nation as Renan understands them. Why, in his view, are nations important? So the answer to this is here in point number 4 that you can see. The attributes of a nation are long past, common endeavors, sacrifice, devotion, common intent to perform great deeds. A nation is a plebiscite or a direct vote and a large solidarity of people. It guarantees liberty. Now, why does he want a nation state, he says? Because it guarantees liberty. It is the free will of the people, a direct vote. They're free to, in large numbers, to stand together and say we want to form a nation. This is the answer of this question. Other than that, they may ask 1-mark questions on who painted it, Frederick Sorouil in 1848, the name of the painting, the dream of worldwide democratic and social republics.